Good morning, I'm Joe Fryer.
And I'm Savannah Sellers. Thanks for joining us. We begin with the escalating battle between former President Trump's legal team and special counsel Jack Smith.
In a late-night filing, the judge overseeing the 2020 election interference case called for a hearing before the end of the week. At issue, that proposed protective order. The move comes after a series of tit-for-tat motions by the special counsel's office and lawyers defending Trump. Yesterday, the former president's legal team asked for a less restrictive alternative to Smith's protective order, arguing it violates Trump's First Amendment rights. The special counsel fired back, accusing Trump of attempting to try the case in the media. At least one former federal prosecutor believes that Smith's request is appropriate in this case.
What this is about is the government is trying to protect the integrity of the judicial process.
You might remember last week, federal prosecutors warned that the release of details or grand jury transcripts could have a chilling effect on witnesses, and they cited the former president's social media posts as a cause for concern. For his part, Trump has pleaded not guilty. We have team coverage of the latest in this legal tug-of-war. Joining us, NBC News Justice and Intelligence correspondent Ken Delanian and NBC News legal analyst Danny Cevallos. Ken, let's start with you. So Trump's team asked the judge to narrow the scope of the government's request. What are the specific changes that they're looking for here?
Well, good morning, Joe and Savannah. The first thing to say is this is not really about Donald Trump's ability to speak about the case. He retains that ability. This is about what he and his team do with the massive amount of evidence that prosecutors are proposing to turn over in what's known as discovery. And that includes witness testimony, records that have been subpoenaed through a grand jury, all kinds of very personal and sensitive information. And in almost every case in a criminal investigation, a protective order is blanketed over that information, forbidding either side from making it public. That's just normal. That's standard. It's normally not challenged. In this case, Donald Trump and his legal team have tried to narrow the proposed protective order in a way that would let them release a lot of information, including about witnesses who testified before the grand jury and gave interviews to the special counsel. And that really worries the special counsel. And the special counsel asserts that this would essentially allow Donald Trump to try this case in the media the way they said his lawyer attempted to do over the weekend when he went on all 5 Sunday shows. And so now the judge has decided, instead of just ruling on the competing set of briefs, she's going to have a hearing about this. It remains to be seen exactly what she will do. But one thing the Trump team has done here is they've successfully bought themselves about a week of delay, which ultimately may be their strategy in this case in all things, guys.
Danny, let's bring you in here. So as Ken just mentioned, we saw his legal team on all these Sunday shows. Of course, the judge and prosecutors have been targets of Donald Trump himself online on his platform, Truth Social. And while a lot of those posts are not directly related to these arguments over the protective order, he's obviously discussing these people, calling them by name, things like that. How likely is it that that particular issue will come up at the hearing? How much we've seen from the former president online?
It definitely will. In fact, it's a central theme of the government's argument. And it's a fair argument. Look, Judge, we've had concerns about Donald Trump speaking and saying inappropriate things. And here's Exhibit A, B, and C. And it's only been about 72 hours. And so I think that's a strong argument for the government. But I also have to caution that, yes, protective orders are common. Protective orders are a good thing. You don't want Rule 6 grand jury material out there. But at the same time, consider this. The defense is having to make this decision on these documents, what should and should not be disclosed, before they even see the documents. And more than that, this is a very unique case because so much of the material is already known. When we read the indictment, a lot of us were thinking, oh, yeah, I've heard about all of this before from the January 6th committee and then arguably even back during the second impeachment. So the question becomes, just because it's a document that the government turns over, is that now something that Trump cannot reveal, even if he already had it, even if it came from him, between him, a text message? It's a much more tricky case because so much of the material's been public for literally years. And so does it suddenly become something that needs to be protected by virtue of the fact that the government had it on its flash drive when it turned it over to the defendant? So I think this is a trickier issue than people are making it out to be. But it seems that every former federal prosecutor in America disagrees.
So, I mean, Ken, even though we've had an indictment, the investigation continues. Now we have former NYPD Police Commissioner Bernie Kerik met with investigators yesterday talking about Rudy Giuliani's alleged role in efforts to overturn the election. So 2 questions here. First, how does Kerik fit into the case? And then what else have you heard about the ongoing investigations into those anonymous, or at least somewhat anonymous, unindicted co-conspirators who were mentioned in the indictment?
Before I answer that, Joe, a quick note on Danny's point. The proposed protective order does not forbid Donald Trump from making public things that are already in the public domain. Now, on Bernie Kerik, look, he was a chief investigator for Rudy Giuliani, who we believe is co-conspirator, unindicted co-conspirator number 1 in this election suppression indictment. And so prosecutors want to talk to him about everything he was doing to explore what we now know are bogus allegations of fraud in the 2020 election, what he told Giuliani, what Giuliani was doing. Kerik has also turned over hundreds of documents to the prosecution, and it just shows that they continue to investigate this case and potentially the roles of those unindicted co-conspirators who remain very much at risk of being charged in this case. Joe and Savannah.
Danny, let's turn now, if you don't mind, before we let you guys go, take a little gear shift here, talk about the Mar-a-Lago documents case for a minute. So totally different investigation, different indictment. In a court filing yesterday, the judge overseeing that case, that's Judge Aileen Cannon, our viewers might remember, she asked the DOJ why there is a second grand jury in D.C. that's also looking into this documents case. Again, this is the Florida one we've seen. How unusual is it to have an out-of-state grand jury continuing to investigate after indictments have happened? It's a federal indictment, but we know that we're seeing all that kind of activity happen down in Florida.
Well, it's unusual because it's such an unprecedented case, and the logic apparently is simply because the other location is a possible situs where some of the possible criminal activity occurred. And that's true. And arguably there could even be additional charges that are not duplicative of the charges in Mar-a-Lago, in the Mar-a-Lago documents case. But it is a fair question as to whether or not this investigation is going to continue and whether or not there are even going to be possible criminal charges. And I don't know exactly how that would work, except that you can imagine that there may be activities that happened in D.C. that could even be charged under the same statutes as the Mar-a-Lago documents case, but they simply happened. The events happened in D.C., and it could be events that grand jury has discovered that we don't even know about. So it's a fair inquiry.
Ken Delaney and Danny Savalos, thank you both. Appreciate it.
Well, now to the latest on the severe weather that continues to have a grip across the U.S. More storms are expected today in parts of the southeast. A line of severe storms moved through parts of Tennessee yesterday. It brought heavy rain, lightning, damaging winds. Look at some of these pictures. Dozens of trees and power lines were toppled by those gusty winds. No serious injuries were reported, though. A little bit of good news. The mid-Atlantic was also hit hard by heavy rain. We saw that here in New York. It impacted drivers on the road in and around the Baltimore area. The storms there knocked out power to tens of thousands of homes and businesses. And the severe weather also caused damage in upstate New York, right outside Syracuse. A tornado is believed to have touched down there yesterday. That has not been confirmed by the National Weather Service, but look at this video. This latest round of severe weather is also impacting travelers as many flights were canceled or delayed. NBC News correspondent Kathy Park has the latest from LaGuardia Airport here in New York.
Well, the summer of extreme weather rages on. The powerful storms marched east and cut a path of destruction in the suburbs of Washington, D.C. There were some spots that saw wind gusts up to 80 miles per hour, knocking down trees as well as power lines. In fact, some federal employees were told to leave work early just as a precaution as government buildings began shutting down. But some workers actually got caught leaving work with unexpected flash flooding. Meanwhile, the same storm system tore through portions of East Tennessee as well as South Carolina and Alabama. A man was struck and killed by lightning. Meanwhile, the travel troubles began piling up at the nation's busiest airports. Here in LaGuardia last night, there were hundreds of delays and cancellations. Fortunately, things are looking much better this morning, but we're still playing catch up. Back to you.
All right, Kathy Park, thank you so much.
So, will things get better? Time now for a check on your morning news now weather.
Angie Lastman is here in studio with us with some answers. Hey, Angie, good morning.
Good morning, guys. The short answer to that is yes, they will get better. We're seeing some improvements, especially across a lot of those areas that dealt with some of that severe weather. But we've got another round of some strong storms that we could deal with moving across the country in the coming days. Let's start with what's still left over from that system that impacted us and a lot of folks yesterday. We've got some rain lingering over parts of New England, Syracuse to Burlington, down through Portland. Portland, all dealing with kind of some soggy conditions this morning. You'll need your umbrella. We're going to see those showers stick around for a little while longer before the system kind of fully moves out and we get some drier air in place. But this is the look as we get through at least the evening hours tonight. We could still see some flooding concerns in this area. The flash flooding and even some stronger storms are all possible. But look what happens by tomorrow. We'll eventually see it move out of the picture, and we're looking much drier for the middle of your week, especially into the second half of your Wednesday. Between now and then, though, we could pick up some additional rainfall on already saturated ground. So say maybe a 1/4 inch to a 1/2 inch in places like Vermont. We move a little farther north into most of Maine and even down through Boston, and we could see upwards of 1, 2, even as high as 4 inches of rain as we get through the end of the day tomorrow. So that's the flooding concern that we'll watch through today, with these rainfall rates upwards of 2 inches per hour. Then we turn our attention to the center of the country. That's where we're going to see a storm system working out of parts of the Rockies. But already this morning, we've got a thunderstorm watch in effect. And earlier, we did have some thunderstorm warnings in effect, too, as this line of thunderstorms kind of marches a little farther to the south and east, stretching from Oklahoma into parts of Arkansas, Little Rock, Oklahoma City, Texarkana, Fayetteville, all dealing with some strong storms this morning. So be aware of that. But even as we get into the afternoon hours today, we'll see a larger area that has the potential to see some of these stronger storms, including the strong winds, hail, and even tornado. And this is the system that we're going to watch scoot across the country here, not just today, but into tomorrow, too. You can see it works into parts of the Ohio to Tennessee Valley. We'll see the severe risk that will extend from Oklahoma to Tennessee. As far as today's severe risk, it's centered from parts of the southeast for 7 million people up into parts of the plains. That's where we see places like Denver, North Platte, Great Bend included in this, and then Montgomery, Jackson, Jacksonville, and Savannah all included, too. The main hazards are going to be more of the same, kind of what we dealt with yesterday in some other spots. It's the large hail up to 2 inches in diameter. We could see those wind gusts up to 60 miles per hour. And we, of course, won't rule out a couple of these tornadoes. If you're looking ahead to tomorrow, this is the area that you're going to want to watch for some of the stronger storms. 15 million people at risk, those same hazards. It does include major cities like St. Louis, Tulsa, Springfield, Little Rock, and Nashville. So we'll watch for those stronger storms to be with us tomorrow, too. And on top of that, more rain. And again, already saturated areas, 1 inch to 2 inches, not out of the question. We could, of course, see inches of rain that are a little higher than that, but we'll keep a close eye on that through the next couple of days. And we can't not talk about the heat, right? At least the Southwest isn't dealing with those heat alerts this morning, but we do have plenty of folks, 52 million people actually, stretching across the South that are dealing with the heat alerts this morning and into the afternoon hours today. And we could see heat index values up to 115 or even higher. We've got 90s for sure in places like New Orleans for the next couple of days, high 90s throughout Jacksonville through the rest of the week, and triple digits across Texas. This is something they've been dealing with for the extended period, guys, and this is going to be something they continue to deal with through the end of the week. Doesn't look like we have a whole lot of relief for folks there, but in the Northeast, pretty seasonable. Low 70s in Syracuse today, low 80s, of course, tomorrow. And then New York kind of hangs out in that 80-degree range for the next couple of days, while D.C. Sticks into the high 80s by Wednesday. So fairly seasonal for folks across the Midwest, the Northeast, but still hanging on to the heat in the South.
And good to hear that, like, that Arizona area getting a little bit of a break.
Just a little bit.
Finally.
They need it.
Yeah.
Thanks, Angie.
Thank you.
This morning, California is honoring 3 of its bravest. 2 firefighters and a helicopter pilot were killed in the line of duty when their CAL FIRE chopper crashed into another one. NBC News correspondent Maura Barrett has more on the aftermath of the crash.
An investigation into a tragic helicopter crash above Southern California.
Bravo, Air Attack, Paris, copy, mid-air collision between 37 Sierra and 5 Alpha Sierra.
2 CAL FIRE helicopters colliding in midair while fighting a brush fire in Cabazon, about 90 miles east of Los Angeles. One helicopter managing to land safely, but the other chopper crashing to the ground, killing all 3 people on board.
We have lost 3 great individuals. 3 fathers, 3 husbands, 3 friends, 3 sons.
The victims identified as 46-year-old CAL FIRE Assistant Chief Josh Bischoff, 44-year-old CAL FIRE Captain Tim Rodriguez, and 56-year-old contract pilot Tony Sousa. In the hours after the crash, a row of firefighters and dozens of emergency vehicles lining up for an emotional salute to their fallen colleagues. California Governor Gavin Newsom now ordering flags at the state capitol to be flown at half-staff, saying in a statement, "This terrible tragedy is a reminder of the dangers our courageous firefighters face daily while working to keep our communities safe." The FAA and NTSB are now looking into how this happened, while the state's largest fire department mourns 3 of their own.
The sacrifice should not be in vain, that we think about them. We will be there to support them.
Our thanks to Maura Barrett for that report. The crash did cause an additional 4-acre fire that firefighters did manage to put out.
Well, Ukrainian officials say they've arrested a woman in connection with an alleged plot to assassinate President Zelensky. It comes after Russia and China held joint naval patrols off the U.S. coast near Alaska. NBC News Chief Foreign Correspondent Richard Engel has the latest.
Ukrainian intelligence says this unidentified woman is a Russian spy captured while carrying out a plot to assassinate President Zelensky during this trip to Mykolaiv last month. She was allegedly tracking his movements so he could be targeted with a Russian airstrike. The Kremlin so far not commenting on the accusations. With its counteroffensive stalled, Ukraine is pushing the war beyond its borders. There was a sea drone attack last week near a Russian port. But Russian President Vladimir Putin and his ally, China's President Xi, are projecting their power abroad too, sending an alarming new message to the United States, Ukraine's main backer. A patrol of 11 Chinese and Russian warships cruised together near Alaska. The Pentagon saying there was no direct threat, but sending 4 destroyers and a reconnaissance plane as a warning. The threat to Alaska is growing. Lester talking to the top-ranking U.S. military officer there just last month.
How do you see the Chinese threat, the North Korean threat?
I see the Chinese threat ever increasing in the Pacific. I also, I watch their cooperation with the Russians. I look at the Russian access in the Arctic with their bases, and I do have concerns.
China says the patrol was not hostile. China also took part in Ukraine peace talks in Saudi Arabia over the weekend. Negotiators only agreed to meet again. Richard Engel, NBC News.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.